In the fast pace of modern life, we often find ourselves swept away by strong emotions, anger, fear, frustration, reacting before we even realize it. But what if there's another way? A more mindful, compassionate, and wise path. Welcome to the Dharma journey, where we explore timeless Buddhist insights to meet the challenges of everyday life with awareness and peace. In today's reflection, how to respond instead of react, we pause to examine the crucial difference between impulsive reaction and mindful response. Through the lens of Buddhist teachings, we'll uncover how awareness creates space to choose, to understand, and to act with intention rather than instinct. This isn't about suppressing emotions, but about meeting them with clarity. We'll explore practices that help us return to the breath, center ourselves in the present moment, and respond from the depth of wisdom rather than the surface of reactivity. Whether you're navigating stress at work, tension in relationships, or inner restlessness, this journey invites you to cultivate presence, the key to transforming your daily experience. Let this reflection be a gentle reminder: you are not your emotions. You are the stillness beneath them. And from that stillness, true response is born. Have you ever said or done something in a moment of anger, and later regretted it deeply? We've all had those moments. Words fly out too quickly, actions are taken impulsively. And what's left behind is a lingering weight of regret. Not because of what others may think of us, but because, in that instant, we lost touch with something vital within ourselves. In those moments, the ego takes over, emotions lead the way, and awareness, the calm observer, goes silent. The Buddha called this ignorance, not in a judgmental way, but as a recognition of how we often move through life without truly seeing what's driving us. And yet, he didn't condemn our reactive tendencies. The subtle yet crucial difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic. It happens fast. Someone criticizes us, and we lash back. Someone disappoints us, and we shut down. Reaction arises from unresolved emotions, raw, unfiltered, often explosive. It's part of our evolutionary wiring, to fight back when threatened, to defend when hurt. But the path the Buddha taught is not about surrendering to instinct. It's about becoming aware. To respond is to pause, to observe the emotion as it rises, and to choose your action with clarity. A response is not suppression, nor is it passive avoidance. It is a conscious decision rooted in insight. The difference between reacting and responding doesn't lie in outward behavior, it lies in the inner quality of awareness. In a reaction, you're consumed by the emotion. In a response, you are aware of it, and free to act from a different place. Mindfulness. The bridge between emotion and wisdom. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's foundational teaching on mindfulness, he spoke of 4 domains to observe: the body, feelings, mind states, and mental objects. This isn't theoretical. It's a roadmap for inner mastery. Let's say anger arises. If you're mindful, you don't become the anger, you notice it. This is anger. It's present. That simple recognition creates space. A pause. A breath. And in that space, freedom begins. You now have a choice: do I need to speak? What would be the kindest thing to do? Can I just stay silent and breathe? Mindfulness helps you witness emotion without being swept away by it. It doesn't make you emotionless, it gives you the power to engage from clarity rather than chaos. Responding is not weakness, it's a quiet strength. Some people think not reacting is weakness, or that being calm is being passive. But it takes tremendous inner strength to remain still in the face of provocation. Anyone can lash out. It takes courage to stay grounded. A wise person doesn't let a moment of anger destroy a relationship or create irreversible harm. They know words are like arrows: once released, they can't be taken back. And wounds caused by speech often cut deeper than we realize. The Dhammapada teaches, hatred is never overcome by hatred. Only by love is hatred overcome. Reacting only fuels the fire. Responding with awareness and compassion breaks the cycle. It's not enough to understand, we must practice. Knowing we should stay calm is one thing. Actually doing it in the heat of the moment is another. That's why the Buddha didn't just offer ideas, he offered practices. Meditation, mindful breathing, and conscious walking aren't rituals. They're training grounds. Each time you return to your breath instead of reacting, you're rewiring your habits. Each pause before speaking is a victory over impulse. Each time you observe your emotion rather than act on it, you're building a new way of being. Like a martial artist who doesn't flail in panic but moves with precision. A mindful person learns not to act from emotion, but from grounded presence. Inner freedom begins with the wisdom to stay silent. How many times have you regretted something said in anger? And how many times have you felt grateful for choosing silence? Silence isn't avoidance. It's not giving up. It's choosing not to feed the fire. It's stepping back to let the mind settle. When you master emotion, you master life. Imagine a day when you no longer get easily triggered, when you're not constantly reacting to others' words or moods. You still feel. You still care, but you're not controlled by any of it. That's inner freedom. That's the quiet power of a mind trained in awareness. And from that calm, you respond, not to win. Not to hurt, but to connect, to clarify, to care. You become someone who is truly present, with yourself, with others, and with life. Transformation begins in a single breath. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to suppress all your emotions. All you need is to pause, just for one breath. To look inward instead of outward. Each time you see your anger without becoming it, you reclaim your freedom. Each time you respond rather than react, you bring peace not just to yourself, but to the space around you. No one can do this work for you. No teaching, no matter how profound, can replace your own lived experience. But if you stay committed to watching, to learning from each moment, to returning again and again to presence, then slowly, surely, the light begins to enter the darkest corners of the mind. And where once there was reactivity, there now grows something softer, wiser, and infinitely more powerful. React, respond, two ways of living, two worlds within. In everyday life, we don't always have time to think before we act. Someone says something hurtful. A situation catches us off guard. A wave of anxiety rises. And we react, quickly, emotionally, instinctively. To react means to respond automatically, without awareness. It's a reflex, driven by habit. To feel fully, and then to act from a place of clarity. A true response doesn't come from impulse but from inner stillness. It doesn't arise from fear or pride but from mindful presence. The Buddha taught. With a mindful heart, we choose how to respond, no longer bound by conditioned emotion. This simple truth holds the key to emotional freedom and a more conscious life. Reactivity is bondage. Response is liberation. In every moment, we stand at a subtle crossroads. Will I react, or will I respond? For those who haven't trained the mind, the usual route is reaction. We speak without thinking. We defend without listening. We act without awareness. Emotions pull the strings, and we follow, often unaware that we're not truly choosing. True freedom isn't doing whatever we want. It's not having to be pushed around by every emotion that rises. When anger becomes the master, we lose ourselves. When fear drives us, we abandon reason. It means you're no longer dragged around by emotions but rooted in something deeper, awareness. Emotions are waves. Awareness is the deep ocean beneath. Picture your mind as an ocean. On the surface, there are constant waves: anger, fear, excitement, disappointment. To react is to be thrown about by those waves. But to respond is to dive deeper, into the still waters below. The Buddha never taught us to suppress emotions. He didn't say, "Don't be angry," or "Don't be sad." He taught us to see them clearly, to observe them without judgment or clinging. Only when we see clearly can we act wisely. When anger arises, mindfulness whispers, "This is anger. It is present. It is not me." That subtle shift, from identification to observation, is the first step out of the unconscious loop. From that space, a wiser response can emerge. Responding is a spiritual maturity. The reactive person lets the world shape their inner state. The responsive person lets their inner clarity shape how they meet the world. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. You still feel joy, sadness, fear, and even frustration. But you relate to these emotions with gentleness and spaciousness. You don't become them. A mindful response may be assertive but compassionate. It may be firm but not harsh. It may be silence, not out of avoidance but from inner steadiness. Such response is not a tactic. It's a reflection of a deeper way of being. A fruit of inner practice. A sign that the heart has softened, and the mind has been trained to wait, to breathe, to see, to choose. No one is born knowing how to respond, it's a journey. Reactivity is a learned habit. Most of us grew up reacting to pain, to threat, to abandonment. We learn to defend ourselves by lashing out or shutting down. We react because we've been hurt. We react because we fear more hurt. The Buddha didn't condemn this. He simply offered a different path. If we can truly see suffering, we will no longer add to it. To see is the first step. To name what's arising. And then to practice, breath by breath. Moment by moment, emotion by emotion. Over time, the intensity of reaction begins to soften. Space appears. The mind settles. We realize, we don't have to be controlled. We don't have to be pulled along. We can stay. We can see. We can choose. This isn't about perfection. It's about training. Not about becoming emotionless, but becoming more human, aware. Compassionate, free. Between reacting and responding is a sacred pause, and in that pause is the whole sky. To an untrained mind, there is no gap between stimulus and response. Everything is automatic. Responding doesn't change the world overnight, but it changes you. You may not be able to change other people. You may not be able to prevent every storm. But you can choose not to feed the fire. You can choose not to throw back what was thrown at you. You can choose how you show up. Each time you respond instead of react, something subtle shifts within you. You become a little less controlled by old pain. A little more grounded in awareness. A little closer to your true nature, not reactive, not impulsive, but vast and clear like the sky. No one can force you to react. No one can make you say that harsh word. No one can take away your right to pause. You can, right now, choose a different way of being. Pull of habit, why we react. And how to wake up. We don't often notice the moment something begins to stir inside us, a tightening in the chest, a flush of heat in the face, a quickening of the breath. But it happens. A word. A glance, a situation we didn't expect, and suddenly we're no longer calm. We've been pulled in. Something inside us has been triggered. In that instant, we rarely choose what comes next. The body moves. The mouth speaks. The eyes harden. Before awareness can even catch up, we've already reacted. Later, we might wonder why we said what we said. Or why we let that small comment bother us so deeply. But at the time, it felt automatic, inevitable. This is the nature of reactivity. It arises not from clarity, but from old tendencies, craving, aversion, and confusion. These forces, known in the Buddha's teachings as greed, lobha, hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha, live deep in the conditioned mind. And when mindfulness is absent, They become the ones who act on our behalf. Reaction is the echo of old karma. Most of what we call personality is actually habit. Not just what we like or dislike, but how we respond to discomfort. They are patterns, mental grooves carved by years of reacting without awareness. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that our suffering doesn't come from the world itself, but from how we relate to it. When we're not mindful, we respond to life through the lens of old karma. Every moment becomes a repetition of the past. But when we're aware, something else becomes possible. The power of mindfulness, seeing before doing. When mindfulness is present, we begin to notice the gap, the space between trigger and reaction. We see the spark of irritation before it becomes a flame. We feel the clench of craving before it pulls us forward. We hear the voice in the mind whispering, say something sharp, and realize we don't have to obey. This seeing is the beginning of freedom. Mindfulness doesn't erase anger or desire. It doesn't turn us into emotionless statues. It simply shines a light on what's really happening. And in that light, we can respond rather than react. We might take a breath instead of snapping back. We might choose silence instead of defensiveness. We might feel the impulse to prove ourselves, and let it pass, without acting on it. This isn't repression. It's not about pushing feelings down. It's about letting them rise and fall without losing ourselves in them. It's about acting from understanding rather than compulsion. Daily moments of reactivity. Tiny portals of practice. The teachings become real not only in monasteries or during long retreats, but in the small, raw moments of daily life. You receive a text that feels cold or passive-aggressive. The body tenses. The story begins, "They're always like this. They don't respect me." And just as you're about to fire back a sharp reply, but you feel it, the surge of heat, and breathe into it. You remember, this too will pass. Or maybe someone you love says something thoughtless. Your chest aches. The old story returns. They never see me. I'm alone. And in that ache, you soften. You allow the sadness. You don't need to turn it into blame. These moments are the true training ground. We're not bad people for reacting, we're just unaware. It's easy to judge ourselves, I shouldn't have yelled. I should be more spiritual by now. But the truth is, reacting doesn't make us bad. It just means we're still learning to see. The more we bring gentle awareness to our own reactions, the more clearly we see the suffering they create, not only for others, but for ourselves. The angry word lingers in the mind. The impulsive action creates regret. The inner clinging tightens our chest and exhausts our spirit. With practice, this honest seeing becomes our teacher. It shows us where we're still caught. And it points the way forward, not by force, but through wisdom. Responding is not always easy, but it's always freeing. To respond mindfully takes courage. It requires us to feel fully, without escaping or distracting ourselves. It asks us to sit with discomfort, to listen before speaking, to be honest about our own wounds. Sometimes the most compassionate response is to walk away. Sometimes it's to speak truthfully but kindly. Sometimes it's simply to breathe. To let the emotion rise and fall without needing to do anything. This kind of response isn't passive. It's deeply active, but from the inside. It requires awareness, intention, and humility. It's not about being nice. It's about being real and awake. The mind wants to react. Awareness waits quietly. There is a part of the mind that always wants to jump in, to defend, to fix, to control. It believes that if it doesn't react quickly, it will lose something important. This part is driven by fear, by ego, by survival instincts. And it often speaks the loudest. But deeper than that is a quiet knowing. A stillness that doesn't rush. A presence that sees without grasping or rejecting. This is awareness. The Buddha didn't offer quick fixes. He offered a path, a way to train the heart and mind, to slowly step out of the grip of old habits and return to clarity. In this path, every reactive moment becomes a doorway. Every struggle becomes an invitation. Not to suppress, not to deny, but to look deeply, to breathe, to choose with wisdom. You can't stop emotions, but you can stop feeding them. Feelings will come. Craving will rise. Aversion will flare. Confusion will cloud your judgment. But you don't have to feed them. Each moment of mindfulness is a turning point. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you plant a seed of freedom. And over time, these seeds grow into a different way of being, less reactive, more grounded, more peaceful. Not perfect, but real. Awake. Human. Most of us live on autopilot. Something happens externally, a word, a glance, a comment, and instantly something stirs inside us. A wave of anger, anxiety, defensiveness. Or sadness rises before we even realize it. We're already reacting. But mindfulness isn't some abstract spiritual state. It's a practical, grounded ability, the ability to pause and see clearly. When we begin to notice, anger is arising, or I'm feeling uneasy, or I want to say something sharp in return, that very moment of noticing is a doorway out of automatic reactivity. Mindfulness doesn't prevent emotions from arising. What it does, something far more powerful, is help us not identify with those emotions. We can feel anger without becoming an angry person. We can feel hurt without inflicting more hurt. Emotions still come and go, but they no longer dictate how we live, speak, or act. This shift, from being overwhelmed by emotions to calmly witnessing them, marks the beginning of true freedom. The Buddha said, like a flame that does not flicker in the wind. The mindful one remains unmoved amidst praise and blame. The Buddha didn't teach us to be cold or indifferent to life. He offered a path to be steadfast amid life's fluctuations. When someone praises us, the unaware mind tends to inflate, pride, vanity, ego. When we're criticized, the same mind tightens, defensive, wounded, angry. All of it stems from an unexamined self clinging to identity. But the mindful person, as the Buddha described, is like a steady flame. Not because the wind has stopped, but because their light is grounded within. They are no longer pushed and pulled by external opinions. They see clearly, praise doesn't make them more valuable, and blame doesn't diminish them. Their self-worth is not built upon the shifting ground of validation or rejection. Peace of mind doesn't mean becoming immune to influence, it means seeing the influence and not losing ourselves in it. A simple practice: pause, breathe, observe, then act. Even a few seconds of awareness can radically change how we move through a moment. In the chaos of modern life, we may not always have the luxury of a long meditation, but anyone can practice this short sequence. Pause, breathe, observe, then act. Pause, the moment you feel triggered, anger, sadness, insecurity, fear, don't react. Just stop. Even for 1 second. That pause is the doorway to mindfulness. Breathe, bring your attention gently to the breath. Feel it at your nostrils. Fear is here. I want to lash out. Just observe it like watching clouds move across the sky. No judgment, no resistance. Simply seeing it often reduces its power. Then act. From that place of clarity, action becomes a choice, not a compulsion. Sometimes that means speaking up. Sometimes it means staying silent. Sometimes it's letting go altogether. But one thing is certain, your response will come from awareness, not reactivity. This is the gentle art of transforming reaction into conscious response. The more we practice, the more natural it becomes. Instead of living like a leaf blown in the wind, we become rooted, clear, stable, and compassionate. That is the power of mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation, vipassana. Training the mind to observe without reacting. Mindfulness meditation, also known as vipassana, isn't just about sitting still and breathing quietly. It's a deeply transformative practice that trains the mind to become aware, present, and free from the grip of automatic reactions. Instead of letting our minds rush into judgment or emotional outbursts, like reacting harshly to a rude comment, a frustrating situation, or an unexpected challenge, vipassana invites us to pause and truly observe. We learn to witness thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations as they arise, without immediately reacting to them. Over time, we develop the capacity to simply notice a wave of anger, a sense of anxiety, or a stab of sadness, without being swept away. These inner storms become like passing clouds in the sky of awareness. We stay grounded. We don't suppress or deny what we feel, but we don't let it control us either. This is the heart of mindfulness, the power of non-reactivity. When we stop being pulled by every passing emotion or thought, a deep inner freedom begins to emerge. Living mindfully, bringing awareness into daily life. Mindfulness isn't something we leave on the meditation cushion. It's a way of living, of being fully awake in the midst of ordinary moments. When we eat, we're aware of each bite. When we walk, we feel each step. When we talk to someone, we bring our full presence into the conversation, instead of half listening while waiting for our turn to speak. One powerful expression of mindfulness in daily life is the ability to listen fully before responding. We don't interrupt. We don't jump to conclusions. We simply listen, with patience and care. In that space of full presence, real understanding can happen. Mindfulness also gives us the clarity to ask honest questions inwardly, such as, what am I really wanting right now? Is this emotion pointing to a deeper need? Will my next action bring peace, or fuel more conflict? These are not intellectual exercises. They're gentle check-ins, ways of coming home to ourselves. Instead of reacting on autopilot, we begin to respond from a place of clarity and intention. Compassionate action, responding, not reacting. When the mind is steady and the heart is open, we gain the strength to act not from fear or anger, but from compassion and understanding. Compassion isn't weakness. It's strength, the strength to see that someone who hurts us may be hurting too. And from that place of insight, we choose not to pass the pain along. This takes practice. Our instinct is often to defend, to lash out, to prove we're right. But mindfulness teaches us how to feel without being ruled by our feelings. We may feel angry, but we don't let anger speak for us. We take a breath. We stay grounded. And then we speak, not from reaction, but from wisdom. Real-life example, when you're insulted, responding with mindful silence instead of retaliation. Imagine this. Someone insults you. Their words are sharp, maybe even unfair. Your body tenses. The urge to fight back is strong. But instead of striking back, you pause. You take a deep breath. You feel the fire rising inside, the tightness in your chest, the pounding of your heart, the heat in your face. But you don't act on it. You're fully aware. Then, you choose silence, not out of fear or weakness, but out of mindful strength. You give yourself space. And when you speak from understanding, not to win, but to connect, to clarify, or simply to let go. That kind of silence is powerful. It's not passive, it's a conscious choice. And in that moment, you step out of old reaction patterns. You begin to change the way you live. The way you relate, the way you show up in the world. The power of choosing to respond instead of react, a path to inner peace and true wisdom. Most of us go through life on autopilot, reacting. A harsh comment, a cold look, an unanswered message, any of these can throw us into emotional turmoil. We snap back, we close off, we spiral. That's reacting, unconscious. automatic responses rooted in fear, habit, or ego. But through mindfulness practice, we begin to discover a different way of living. We pause. We breathe. And instead of reacting, we learn to respond, from a place of clarity, compassion, and presence. We don't suppress our feelings. We don't pretend everything's fine. But we respond with intention, choosing words and actions that reflect understanding rather than impulse. The journey from reaction to response is the journey from chaos to calm. From blindness to awareness, from instinct to wisdom. And the benefits touch every part of our lives. 1. Inner peace, not getting pulled into drama and judgment. When we live in reaction mode, it feels like life is constantly throwing us off balance. Praise makes us feel inflated, criticism brings us down. A small disagreement can ruin our whole day. But when we practice mindfulness and choose to respond, we begin to live like a still lake, calm, steady, and undisturbed by every ripple. We hear what others say, but we're not carried away. We notice what's happening, but we remain centered. This kind of peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict or pretending everything's okay. It comes from wisdom, the understanding that every person is acting from their own pain, their own lens. And not everything deserves our energy or attention. Real peace is not about avoiding the waves. It's about learning how to stay grounded in the middle of them. 2. Healthier relationships, saying the right thing, the right way, at the right time. In our daily interactions, reacting too quickly often leads to misunderstanding and regret. A few careless words spoken in anger can damage years of trust. A cold silence can shut someone down completely. To pause before speaking, and to respond with care. We know when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to say even hard things with kindness and clarity. Mindful communication isn't about being soft or passive, it's about being wise. It's the art of knowing what's needed in the moment, a word, a pause, a look, or simply your full presence. One mindful conversation can heal years of hurt. A single moment of silence can prevent hours of argument. And sometimes, not reacting is the most loving response you can give. 3. Growing compassion, understanding yourself and others more deeply. Every reaction we have comes from somewhere, often from old wounds, buried fears, or unmet needs. That flash of anger, it might be covering up a deep fear of being rejected. That frustration, maybe it's tied to a need to be seen or respected. But when we pause and choose to respond instead of react, we get the chance to turn inward. To breathe. To look beneath the surface of the emotion. And often, what we find is a younger version of ourselves, still hurting, still longing. In that moment, something profound happens, we stop blaming others, and we begin to care for ourselves. And as we understand ourselves more clearly, we begin to see others with new eyes. We see that their reactions come from pain too. That they're not bad or broken, just human, just trying their best with what they've been given. This is where true compassion is born, not from trying to be nice, but from seeing the truth. And when compassion arises, every response, whether it's a word, a boundary, or silence, becomes a step toward healing. 4. Breaking old patterns, creating a new way of living. Reacting is the old way. It's driven by conditioning, ego, fear. Responding is the new path, led by awareness, freedom, and choice. Every time you pause instead of snapping back, you're breaking a cycle. Every time you breathe through a trigger and respond with presence, you're rewriting your story. Over time, you stop being a victim of your circumstances. You become the conscious author of your own life. Life stops feeling like something to endure and starts to feel like something to explore, with openness, with curiosity, with presence. This is how we begin to transform our karma, not with big dramatic changes, but with tiny moments of mindfulness that shift the direction of everything. 5. Living as someone who is truly present, coming home to what's real. Perhaps the greatest gift of choosing to respond is that we come back to ourselves. We become someone who is truly present in life, not drifting through emotions or chasing reactions, but awake to what's happening right now. In that presence, we begin to see clearly. Life becomes lighter. Relationships become more honest. Challenges become teachers. And every moment, even the difficult ones, becomes part of the path back home. You are stepping out of suffering and into wisdom. Out of confusion and into clarity. Start small. Take one mindful breath. Pause before speaking. Reflect before acting. Let your words come from the heart, not from habit. Let your silence speak when needed. Because peace doesn't come from outside. It begins with one breath, one choice, one response at a time. If this reflection spoke to something within you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to keep walking this path together. Not reaction. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha offers a profound truth. Greater than the one who conquers 1,000 enemies in battle is the one who conquers himself. Dhammapada. It means seeing our inner reactions rise up, and still choosing not to act from them. That is the true victory. Not over others. But over the part of ourselves that wants to strike back. Prove something, or protect the ego at any cost. Responding, not reacting, a practice rooted in wisdom. When we react, we are slaves to habit. Something happens, and we lash out, shut down. Or get swept away. We don't think. We don't breathe. We don't see clearly. But the Buddha taught the way of mindfulness. Whatever arises in the mind, observe it. Don't cling to it. Don't resist it. But if we pause, just for a breath, we open the door to a new possibility. We begin to respond, instead of react. And this single breath, this moment of awareness, is the seed of liberation. Victory doesn't always look like winning. Often, we think of victory as being right, speaking louder, or having the final word. But in the light of the Buddha's teachings, true victory is much more subtle, and much more powerful. True victory is when you feel the anger rise, and you don't let it speak. True victory is when you're misunderstood, and you choose understanding instead of retaliation. True victory is when you could hurt someone with words, and instead, you choose silence, or kindness. These moments may go unnoticed by others. But within you, they are monumental. You are breaking chains. You are dissolving karma. You are walking the path of awakening. The battlefield is within. The Buddha never encouraged us to fight with the world. His invitation was always inward. He knew the real battle isn't outside, with difficult people or challenging situations. The real battle is inside, with our own greed, hatred, and delusion. And it is this battle, when met with mindfulness, compassion, and patience, that brings true peace. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is an eternal law. Dhammapada. Verse 5. When we react with hatred to hatred, the cycle continues. But when we respond with understanding, the chain is broken. The fire dies down. And something new can begin. Each response is a step toward freedom. In every difficult moment, you are given a choice. To fall into old patterns, or to rise into presence. To react from fear, or to respond with wisdom. This choice may seem small, but it is the turning point of your life. Every time you choose to respond mindfully, you are walking the Buddha's path, not in theory, but in living truth. You are practicing metta, loving kindness, upekkha, equanimity, and sati, mindfulness, in real time. You are not waiting for enlightenment in some distant future, you are living it now. In the middle of everyday conversations, emotions, and challenges. The quiet power of self-mastery. The world often celebrates outer achievements, money, fame, control. But the Buddha celebrated something quieter, deeper, and infinitely more rare, mastery of the mind. It doesn't matter how much power you hold in the world if your anger still controls you. It doesn't matter how wise you appear if your ego still needs to win. True strength is in restraint. True intelligence is in humility. True victory is when peace remains, even when the world around you does not. The freedom in letting go of reaction. To respond instead of react is not to suppress your truth, but to express it skillfully, with heart. It's not about avoiding conflict, but engaging in a way that doesn't harm. This path is not always easy. The mind will resist. The ego will push. The emotions will flare. But each time you pause, returning to the Buddha's words. The Buddha never asked us to be perfect. He simply pointed the way and said, "Come and see." When you choose to respond with awareness, you are seeing. You are walking. So when the urge to react comes next time, remember. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to feed the fire. You just need to come home, to your breath, to your heart, to your stillness. That is the victory the Buddha spoke of. That is the freedom beyond all reactivity. Final reflection. The battle isn't outside. It's within. And the victory doesn't require shouting, it requires silence. It doesn't require domination, it requires understanding. You are changing the whole direction of your life. You are, in the words of the Buddha, conquering the most noble enemy of all, the untrained mind. True happiness comes not from control, but from conscious response. A mindful journey toward freedom from suffering. We often grow up with the belief, spoken or unspoken, that if we could just control everything around us, then we'd finally be happy. If people behaved the way we wanted, if life unfolded according to our plans, if there were no surprises or pain or setbacks, then we could relax. Then we'd feel safe. Then we'd be at peace. But life, in its vast and unpredictable beauty, refuses to be controlled. People say things that hurt us. Circumstances shift in an instant. Things fall apart just when we thought they were coming together. Health declines. Plans fail. Loved ones leave. Time passes. Everything changes. And so we struggle. We tighten our grip. We try harder to manage, to fix, to control. But the more we cling, the more fragile we become. The more we resist life, the more exhausted we feel. This constant pushing against reality becomes its own form of suffering. So what's the alternative? Mindful living, responding instead of reacting. True freedom begins the moment we stop reacting out of habit and start responding with awareness. It's a simple shift, but a powerful one. Reactivity is automatic. It comes from fear, pain, pride, or past wounds. Someone says something unkind, and we snap back. A plan doesn't go our way, and we spiral into frustration. We feel unseen. And we withdraw in silence or resentment. But when we respond, we pause. We breathe. We notice what's rising in the body, tension, heat, tightness. We become aware of the thoughts rushing through the mind. We allow them to be there, without immediately acting on them. And from that space, we choose. We choose to speak with kindness. Or say nothing at all. We choose to step back instead of fueling the fire. We choose to care for our inner state, rather than trying to control outer events. This is the art of responding. Meeting life as it is, with wisdom, not resistance. Peace is an inside job. It might sound simple, but learning to respond mindfully can change your entire life. You start to realize that your peace doesn't depend on what other people say or do. It doesn't rely on everything going smoothly. It comes from within, from the way you relate to each moment. When someone criticizes you, you no longer feel the need to defend your ego. When plans fall apart, you don't fall apart with them. When emotions rise, you see them clearly, but you are not consumed by them. There's a deep strength in this kind of inner calm. You're no longer a puppet pulled by every string of praise or blame, gain or loss, pleasure or pain. You're steady, grounded, free. Improved relationships through mindful response. When we begin to respond instead of react, something beautiful happens in our relationships. Conversations become less about being right, and more about being real. Conflicts soften. Understanding grows. We start to speak with more care, saying the right thing, at the right time. In the right way. We listen more fully. We stop projecting our pain onto others. Instead, we hold space, for ourselves and for the people we love. This isn't about becoming passive or avoiding hard truths. It's about learning to speak from the heart, not from hurt. It's about choosing compassion over control. And in doing so, we become a source of healing in a world that so often runs on reactivity. The root of compassion is understanding. As our mindfulness deepens, we begin to see more clearly, not just what we feel, but why we feel it. We start to recognize the patterns within us, old wounds, inherited beliefs, unresolved fears. We see that our reactions are often not about this moment at all, they're echoes of the past. And then, a powerful thing happens, we begin to see that others are the same. We understand that behind anger is usually pain. Behind aggression is fear. Behind silence may be a story never told. From this place of understanding, compassion arises, not as a virtue, but as a natural response. We don't need to force it. It flows. We stop taking things personally. We stop judging others for the masks they wear. Instead, we look deeper. We soften. We connect. The Buddha's teaching, freedom through mastery of the mind. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Though one should conquer 1,000 men in battle, yet he who conquers himself is the noblest victor." What does it mean to conquer oneself? It means gaining mastery over the mind, not by suppressing thoughts or emotions, but by seeing them clearly, without clinging or aversion. It means choosing awareness over autopilot. It means responding with wisdom rather than reacting with ego. Every time you pause instead of snapping back, you're winning a quiet victory. Every time you respond with patience, when anger is rising, you're walking the path of freedom. This is not weakness, it is true strength. Letting go of the need to control. So much of our suffering comes from trying to control what we cannot. But life is not meant to be controlled. It's meant to be met, with openness, with curiosity, with courage. The more we accept this truth, the more peace we find. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. It means we stop wasting energy fighting reality, and start investing that energy into our own clarity and compassion. We respond not because life is easy, but because we choose to be free. The first step toward liberation. Choosing to live mindfully, to respond with awareness, is not a one-time decision. It's a practice. A daily invitation. A lifelong path. And it starts now. It starts with the breath you take before reacting. The space you create before speaking. The kindness you offer when it would be easier to blame. The silence you hold when words would wound. This is how suffering begins to end, not all at once, but moment by moment, breath by breath, response by response. If you found this sharing helpful, you're not alone. A closing reflection for the mindful soul. If you're still here, reading or listening, then maybe, just maybe, something in these words touched a part of you that's been quietly waiting. Waiting for stillness in the noise. For clarity in confusion. For a different way to live, not by reacting, but by responding with understanding, presence, and peace. We live in a world that moves fast. One that teaches us to achieve, to compete, to fix, to strive. But what we often forget is that the deepest transformation doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being more aware, more intentional, more awake. And that's exactly what this journey is about. The teachings of the Buddha are not locked away in ancient texts or distant monasteries. They are alive here, now, in your breath, in your choices, in every moment you choose presence over panic, love over fear, understanding over reaction. Each time you pause before speaking. Each time you return to your breath when anger rises. Each time you soften instead of shutting down. That is wisdom in action. That is mindfulness becoming life. Your voice matters. If any part of this message resonated with you, I invite you to take a moment to reflect. What spoke to you most? Was it the idea of responding rather than reacting? The truth that peace is an inside job? The reminder that compassion begins with understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Not just for us, but for you. Sometimes, putting your reflections into words is the first step in embodying the insight. And you never know, your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. We're not here to preach. We're here to practice. Together. Your experience, your growth, your path, it matters. Why subscribe? There are so many voices in the world today, and so much of what we hear can feel loud, empty, or overwhelming. But here, on this channel, our intention is simple, to share timeless Buddhist wisdom in a way that's real, grounded, and relevant to modern life. Whether you're facing stress, seeking purpose, navigating loss, or simply longing to live more mindfully, these teachings can light the way. Every week, we offer new videos that explore practical insights from the Buddha's path, on suffering and freedom, on love and letting go, on inner peace and presence. Not as theory, but as tools for transformation. If this speaks to you, please consider subscribing. Not because we want numbers, because we want community. A circle of people walking gently, consciously, and compassionately through life. Thank you for being here. It means so much that you took this time. Not just to watch or listen, but to be present, to yourself, to these teachings. And to the part of you that knows there is more to life than distraction and reaction. Remember, you don't need to be perfect to be on the path. You don't need to have it all figured out to begin. You just need to begin. With one breath. One pause. One mindful response. So from our heart to yours, thank you. Thank you for your presence, for your practice, for being part of this shared journey. May you continue to walk with awareness. May you speak with compassion. May you meet each moment with courage and grace. And until we meet again, stay mindful. Stay open. Stay free.